mentioned that evangelicalism from the 1730s, when you talk about its origin, I don't think many in our audience have even thought about that. They don't think about how far their history goes back and where it originated from. Where do you see evangelicalism originating from?
Okay, I do see evangelicalism as being a distinct phenomenon developing from the 1730s onwards, associated with what in America is normally called the Great Awakening, in Britain, the Evangelical Revival. Now, it happened in denominations which were deeply indebted to earlier Christian history, of course, and in most denominations that already existed, the Anglicans, the Congregationalists, the Presbyterians, the Baptists, their traditions stem from the Reformation. But there is, as it were, a distinct change of gear in the mid-18th century. From the Reformation of the 16th century onwards, those various denominations had insisted on reformation being the priority for Christian believers, that they must reform their church order, reform their pattern of worship, so they reflected what the scriptures command. Getting churches right was their priority. From the mid-18th century onwards, beginning in the 1730s, but developing the 40s, 50s onwards, Christians who identified with the Great Awakening began to say, okay, we carry on with our Reformation emphases on church order, but we also seek revival. We want to revitalize our churches by having deep personal experience of God and spreading that deep personal experience to other people too, by spreading the gospel. So the impetus to spread the gospel became much more prominent. It's no accident that in the Anglo world, the missionary movement to other parts of the world is the fruit of that evangelical revival / Great Awakening. The first traditional denominations major missionary society is founded in 1792 by William Carey, the Baptist Missionary Society, and that represents the impulse to spread the gospel, the activism I've been spoken of. That activism now becomes an international phenomenon, taking the gospel not just to those in the countries where the gospel is already known, but to fresh countries, in order to have revival spread elsewhere. So whereas the Reformation had been the paradigm within which Christians operated up to the mid-18th century, evangelicals subsequently adopted revival as their chief paradigm, constantly seeking it and promoting it, not only at home, but also abroad. Therefore, there's a very distinct change of gear. Now, some historians have criticized that. Indeed, there's a whole book that was published in 2009, I think, having contributions by quite a lot of historians and theologians saying, well, no, we don't think that it only began in the mid-18th century. The evangelical movement goes right back to the Reformation. And some people who see reformed continuities from the Reformation onwards can have quite a strong case for seeing continuities right through the 18th century and onwards. And I would share the view that there is a great deal of continuity. However, other contributors to the volume said, and these are the ones I really agree with, yes, although there's that continuity, there is also a great deal of discontinuity, and there is novelty in the quest for revival in the 18th century. And I think that the clinching argument which shows that that is valid is that it's not just that the traditional denominations are revitalized by the evangelical movement then, but also a whole new denomination is created, and that's Methodism. The Methodism of John Wesley only begins in the 1730s, or to be precise, at 9:15 in the evening on the 24th of May in 1738, the juncture of John Wesley's conversion. From then on, Methodism springs up, becomes a huge movement, by far the biggest Protestant denomination in America in the 19th century, and that movement is a novelty which expresses this evangelical spirit through and through. So I would see the 18th century as being the time when evangelicalism is, as a fresh movement, is created.